Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Work From Home Show. I'm Naresh. With Adam Schrader. Today we have Scott McEwen on the show. For those who are movie buffs, you've heard of the film American Sniper. Scott is a #1 New York Times bestselling co-author of American Sniper, the autobiography of the most lethal sniper in U.S. military history, which was turned into an Oscar-winning adaptation film, American Sniper. He's also the author of American Sniper Memorial Edition, as well as Sniper Elite, One Way Trip, and the new book, Hell Week and Beyond, The Making of a Navy SEAL. So without further ado, Scott McEwen, it's an honor to have you on the Work From Home Show.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, let's first start with your background and your writing journey. Just walk us through how you became a #1 New York Times bestselling author, and also how it appears American Sniper, that franchise, is what got you to hit the mainstream. So how did you get the opportunity to co-author and partner on that work?
I'm a recovering attorney, and while I was practicing law, I did a lot of pro bono work. I live here in San Diego, and I did a lot of pro bono work with the United States military, both deployed as well as families here that were having issues legally. And so I would donate my services to various Marine, Navy, and other organizations to help out families that were having legal issues while their loved ones were gone, and also to the loved ones that were gone. So anyway, as a result of that work, I got to know a lot of Navy SEALs, pretty well, and one of those was Chris Kyle. I heard Chris's story, got to know his family, really got to know all that they've been through in the years of war that Chris had fought for this nation, and I thought that his story was an unbelievably compelling one, and one that needed to be recorded historically, and that led to American Sniper.
So you said you were a recovering attorney. Did you have any background at all in writing? Because your writing style, it is nonfiction, but it has a fiction style to it because you are storytelling. So how did you improve your writing skills? Where did you get your experience to write such a classic work?
I think one of the more interesting critical, if you will, interviews I got, and somewhat from the left, was a person from the I think it might have been HuffPost, I don't remember, but asked me, said, well, this thing reads like somebody sat down at a bar, opened up a 6-pack of Coors Light, turned on a tape recorder, and started asking the guy about his war, about what happened in his war. And I said, you got it. You got it. I think that, while style is so very important, I think that sticking, particularly in autobiography or biography format, sticking to the speaking mannerisms, the style of the witness, if you will, where I'm just the cartographer, I'm just the scribe, is very important in getting the reality of the story. And I think that's the most important thing. And I like to think that when I do an autobiography, whether it's that or American Commander with Ryan Zinke or whatever else, that it's their words and I merely, put them in a more flowing context. But to do it right, I think you have to do it from the mouthpiece of the actual person that went through the experience.
Yeah, you almost had to answer that with, well, thank you. What's your question? Kind of whenever they do that in the bar. How much did you, what did you think of, obviously the movie did very well. Do you think they did a good job adapting your source material to the screen?
I had an intimate part in that movie, and the reason being is I introduced Chris to Bradley, and Chris was killed shortly thereafter. And, and I had done some interviews with Bradley, and obviously a huge actor, 3 times People Magazine, best looking man on earth, great guy. I really like Bradley, but not really his genre. This wasn't really what he was known for. And so I think my
that's
job,
that's
more
putting it
important than
mildly.
anything, yeah, I think it was fair. When I asked him, I said, look, dude, are you going to be willing to get, like dirty? I'm talking about down in the mud, in your face, in the sand, gritty, ugly, all the things that it is to become a Navy SEAL, which I really write about in this latest book, and Hell Week and Beyond, is the process to become a Navy SEAL is so blue collar, so literally, demeaning and yet meaningful, in that you have to break yourself down. You have to make these men a part of a team, and it's a very difficult process to understand. And, Bradley convinced me, and he convinced Chris that he could do it, and he did do it. And so I was very pleased with not only Bradley's acting job, which I felt deserved not only the nomination, but the award. I really did, but it wasn't politically, if you will, correct. But, I felt that Clint, and that Clint ultimately took the movie on and did it. And we always wanted Clint from the beginning. Unfortunately, Chris did not know because he wasn't there. And I had an awesome responsibility in making the movie to make sure that it was something that his memory was not only going to be, cared for and defended, but that his kids would be able to watch it, someday and be proud of their dad.
Your latest book is called Hell Week and Beyond, the Making of a Navy SEAL. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and also walk us through the process of actually becoming a Navy SEAL? It's not as easy as it sounds.
No. What I wanted to do is really kind of give the public an idea of the commitment that these men make to becoming what I consider to be the most, special warrior on the face of the planet. And I say that with all reverence, to what they go through. And, and I think that people don't realize exactly how difficult this process is, and how, because you start the process with men that are already in great physical shape. They have to pass certain tests just to be able to start the program. And then the program is 18 months of becoming a Navy SEAL. In the first month of that program, they have, at the end of that month, a process called Hell Week, where they keep you awake for essentially 5 days without any sleep. They put you through the most grueling, hypothermic, as well as just difficult physical and mental process, and they invite you to quit. They want you to quit. They want you to ring that bell and drop on request, because they don't want you there if you don't have the right stuff to be what they want, to be the warrior that'll make it through the rest of the 18 months. So this is front-loaded. This process is front-loaded, this Hell Week, to the first month, the end of the first week of the first month. And by the end of that process, you and I, the American taxpayer, will have spent approximately $1.5 million per man in training costs alone, teaching them how to jump out of airplanes, teaching them how to dive to the ocean, get into submarines, out of submarines, teaching them all this process that you see, explosives, weapons, etc., that make these guys such amazing, versatile warriors in the jobs we ask them to do. But, before they want to invest that money, they want to make sure this man is so tough that he will not quit. And once you make it through this Hell Week, over 95% of the men make it through the rest of the process.
Yeah, one of my old bosses, Naresh, I don't remember if he was around when you were at Biz Radio, but Doug was a former Navy SEAL. And some of the stories, you talk about how the guy writing the article told you it sounded like you were sitting around the bar. He would tell me stories about some of the things that, in getting ready for being a SEAL, or when he was actually a SEAL, and some of the things that he did that were just, they sounded unbelievable in many different ways. You, for this book, were able to interview, a bunch of well-known SEALs. Were you mostly given the opportunity because they saw what you'd done with your book on Chris and said, okay, he's going to kind of respect us and what we do? Or how are you able to get that insight?
I think, obviously, yes. I think that, people, after you see something like American Sniper, and you realize that, the work that was done both on the book and the movie was nothing but reverent, if you will, to the subject. That doesn't mean you're not going to tell the truth. That doesn't mean you're not going to tell the frailties of men, and all men have frailties. None of us are perfect. But that means you're going to tell it as quickly, or I should say as accurately as you can, to the person you're dealing with. And, and I think that obviously I've done several books now. This is my 10th book, and I always write with a bias towards our American military, and I'll admit that. I respect these guys. I think that as a nation, we don't give our military, not just the SEALs, but all our military, the due that they really deserve, because it's only 1% of our populace that defends the other 99%. And so I just like to, I think that the Navy and certainly the SEAL teams and the special operations spec war guys, they know that if I come in there, that not only am I going to make sure that I submit whatever is classified for their review or potentially classified, which I always do in my nonfiction, but that I will treat them and their people with respect.
So one of the things, people might be wondering why we're talking about this on the Work From Home show, but for me, a lot of this is you talk about the things that they, put them through in Hell Week before they even really start getting into spending the money to train them. And it's kind of the mental fortitude these all these recruits have to have. One of the things I saw whenever I was reading about your book is you say pretty much everybody has one thing in common, and that's humor. Can you talk about some of the things you've seen of the people who've made it through and of the people who haven't, maybe, about kind of what causes success and failure?
Well, I think that's one of the things, like you say, work from home. Okay, one of the things I love about these guys and that I talk about in this book are these principles of discipline and of getting the job done that they get out of the Navy SEALs. These guys get out, dude, they are all successful. There is a very rare, I don't know one that is not successful at whatever he does. Because the bottom line is they take that discipline, that work ethic, that I'm going to finish the job ethic, that I am a winner. I will not let somebody else beat me outwork me or whatever else. And they bring it to to their work. And I've witnessed it, personally, for example, with Ryan Zinke, running for Congress. When he was first running for Congress in Montana, he was an officer that was, introduced me to Chris. And when Chris was killed, I got to know Ryan real well. We ended up doing American Commander book. But while I was working on that, I was kind of helping him campaign for office, because obviously I could get a lot of radio and TV because of my fame, if you will, with American Sniper, and help his political, if you will, fortunes out a little bit. But that guy, he was against three other guys. It's a military state, Montana. The other three guys running were all military. It wasn't as if he had an edge because he was military and the others weren't. But let me tell you something. Every morning, 5 a.m., you're up. Every day, 11 p.m., 12 p.m., you go to bed. You work out. You do at least one workout during the day. You basically do not quit. And he outworked everybody to win that seat. And drove from one part of that state to the other. Didn't matter if it was 10 people at the meeting at a breakfast or 100 people or whatever it was. He showed up. And that's why Navy SEALs are so successful in life, is because they show up and they damn well make that meeting. They don't, blow things off. And they get the job done. And that's something that I believe this book and this attitude can bring to anybody working anywhere.
Talking about the training again for the making of a Navy SEAL, I think a lot. I did not grow up knowing much about the military. So the military, Navy, Air Force, etc. And Hell Week and beyond is specific to becoming a Navy SEAL. Does the Army not have a Hell Week, so to speak?
Well, the Army has special operations forces in Delta, in their Ranger force. Their Delta is their Tier 1, if you will, SEAL Team 6 comparative would be their Delta force. So they certainly have special operations forces. The Rangers are a great force, much larger than the SEALs, but certainly a great force that has, Green Berets, have their own, if you will, crucibles of training that are extremely difficult. And I'm certainly not saying that these other branches of the military don't have guys as good or the same as the SEALs in many aspects. But I will say this: the SEALs pride themselves on, this most difficult of training during this 1 week. And I think of all the special forces, that the 1 week of Hell Week in the SEALs is probably the most difficult of American forces, if not forces in the entire world.
I want to go back to what you were talking about a second ago when you said you don't think that Americans are giving the military, the due that they deserve. What are some things that you would like to see us do for both our active and veteran service members?
Well, I think one of the things that really struck me with, for example, with American Sniper. And one of the messages that was so important to Chris that I believe we brought across pretty well, in the book and that Clint certainly highlighted in the movie, is that, it is incumbent upon us as Americans to create an environment where not only the finest of our forces want to be Navy SEALs, but that, or military, but that, that's a viable option for our people, to do these jobs. And, and I think that if we are going to choose amongst our force of our populace, we got to make sure that people look upon these people and they don't look down upon these people. And I see many times people question the military and things of this nature on a general basis. And I'm not going to say one party or the other does it more, but I will say this, that, that the military is sometimes looked at as social petri dishes and, testing grounds for certain social policies. That's not their job. Okay. I respect the military because I believe their job is to defend the United States. I don't think their job is to make sure they incorporate, LB, and I'm not saying this negatively towards, whatever the, if you will, the LGBTQ society. But what I am saying is that is not their job. Their job is to have the toughest, the roughest, the most, trained and vicious, if you will, military in the world, so that the Chinese, the Russians, whatever the foe is, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, does not want to test our resolve. And, and I think I give respect to our military when I give them cover and say, look, guys, do your job. Just do your job. And I would like the other people to recognize that people need to look at these men and women and say, as long as you're doing your job and you're defending this country, then that is your job.
Scott, can you tell us about your writing process? Do you write from home? Are you traveling around the world, traveling to unsafe places? Are you going to Annapolis and New York and hanging out at the bases there? What's going on?
I think that do I do some travel in more dangerous parts of the world? Certainly. Have I done, if you will, a lot of USO type things? Yes, I have. I was just on a nuclear submarine recently speaking to the troops. I was just invited down to a Navy chief ceremony, at 32nd Island to get on a boat there and go out on a boat and promote the chiefs or help promote them in their, in their becoming chiefs in the Navy. And, and I do stuff for the Coast Guard and stuff. So do I do, if you will, field research, and I say that kind of, in an offhand way? Yes. But is that, that's where I get my inspiration. I get ideas from that, but, I get my inspiration from just seeing these young men and women that are really, very, very much, very much a part of, our youth. I mean, it's unbelievable how young these people are that we're asking to do these jobs, to run essentially with obviously extremely qualified officers that on nuclear, a nuclear submarine or whatever. But my God, you're looking at 18 to 22, 23-year-old kids that are running some of the most sophisticated high-end equipment on earth. And, and I find inspiration just in that alone. And, and in their love and respect for this country, because, I see this country run down too often, and I believe it's the greatest country on earth.
That's Scott McEwen, #1 New York Times bestselling, co-author of the American Sniper series. His new book is called Hell Week and Beyond, The Making of a Navy SEAL. Check all of his books out on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. They're at all bookstores. The website is scottmcewen.com. That's MCEWEN, scottmcewen.com. Scott, any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners or anything else you want to promote?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you doing, and putting up my site. I want to encourage people on this book, if possible, to go to that little mom and pop bookstore that's out there in your town, and everyone has it, or almost everyone has it. A lot of used books are sold there, but new books can be ordered there. Maybe my book's on the shelf there. I'm sure at least one of my book out of 10 is there. But bottom line is, go to that and frequent that little shop, because, we've taken some hard hits in this COVID thing. And I think these smaller bookstores, I travel around and try and frequent these stores and, and give them business. And, if you can buy this book at that place, I would love to see it because, Jeff Bezos got enough money. And so, if you can get something smaller, then let's look smaller. And, and as the Navy SEALs say, as long as there's a light at the end of the tunnel, we can get to that end of that tunnel. And don't give up. Don't give up. We're going to get back, and this country's getting back on its feet. This COVID thing is getting beaten, and follow the SEALs. They'll tell you that they're never going to give up, and neither should we.
Scott McEwen, thank you so much for joining us on the Work From Home Show. To all our listeners, check us out at workfromhomeshow.com. Email us if you have any questions, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform you use. Follow us on social media. We are everywhere. And until next week, keep on working from home.